So we are going to be talking with our candidates for Superior Court Judge. Before, let's see. Go ahead and take that banner down, Tevin. Thank you so much. So we are starting with our panelists for Superior Court Judge. I believe it's Area 1. Yes. But before we get started, let me read this disclaimer real quick for Mr. Willis Stockdale Coleman. The Code of Judicial Ethics bars judicial officers from endorsing candidates for non-judicial office. Commissioner Marilyn Stockdale Coleman's attendance today must not be taken as an endorsement of any of the non-judicial candidates on the panel. So we want to make sure we put that out there. The Superior Court judges, they arbitrate, advise, adjudicate, or administer justice in a court of law. So let me go ahead and add Ms. Coleman to the stream. We have all of our people here. Let me see, I'm gonna put you on this side of Sam so that we can see everybody nice and clear. And then we will throw it to our team. Let's go ahead and close that door. So we'll go ahead and throw it to Janice and Jada, and you guys can start with the opening statement.
Hi, I'm Janice, and I'm one of your moderators for BYLP's Candidate Forum.
Hi, and I'm Jada, and I'm one of the other moderators for today's Candidate Forum.
Good afternoon.
Oh.
See, I'm on mute. So, Samuel, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Samuel Hunley. I'm in 5th grade. I'm 11, and I like sports.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Ladies, go ahead and take it away for opening statements, please.
Our first question would be, how do you define
opening statements, lady?
Opening statement. We're gonna start with Are we gonna start with Mrs. Coleman or Mr.? We'll start with Mrs. Coleman for the opening statement.
All right. Everybody can hear me okay? All right. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you guys today. I'd like to share a little bit about myself and how I got to where I am today. When I graduated from Howard University, I came back to Sacramento, and I worked as a reporter for the Sacramento Bee for a while. And then I went to the state of California and worked in public affairs. A few years later, I found myself a single mother with 2 young children facing some court hearings, and I couldn't afford an attorney. So I represented myself in court, and it was a terrifying experience because I didn't know the law, and the issues were important. It was my children and how I would support them. That experience for me was life-changing. I decided to go to law school so I could help people like myself. I went to law school at night, and I worked full-time during the day while trying to raise my children. When I passed the bar, I quit my job and I opened a law firm. And then within a couple of years, I knew I wanted to be a judge because I believed I could make a positive difference. I spent the next several years getting all the experience that I could get to make me a more qualified candidate. In 2019, I was appointed to be a commissioner by unanimous vote of all the judges in Napa Superior Court and then in Sacramento Superior Court. You know, you can become a judge by governor's appointment or by election. And our last contested election in Sacramento County for judge was 10 years ago. Judge races are very different than other races. For example, there are special rules that don't allow us to speak on some issues and topics. Also, judges don't have to live in Sacramento County. In fact, 1 in 4 of my colleagues on the bench right now live outside of Sacramento County. What really matters is how we show up in the Sacramento community. I've been active in this community for 35 years as a member of organizations such as Delta Sigma Theta, 100 Black Women, and McGeorge as a faculty. In court, you know, we hear a variety of our cases like family, civil, probate. I have experience in most of these types of cases, both as a lawyer and as a judicial officer. I have experience on the bench. I'm endorsed by over 70 judges across the state, including the judge I seek to replace. Thank you for your time. I look forward to answering your questions.
Okay, so we are going to kick it back to Mr. Calvillo. The floor is yours, sir.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, my name is Noel Calvillo, and I am running for judge. I've worked in Sacramento County for over 25 years, and throughout that time, I've made sure to be involved in the community. So, for example, I've volunteered with the Florida Law Academy over at Grant High School and some other high schools. I like working with people that look like us because I truly feel that we simply are not treated fairly by the court system. And so over the course of my career, I've worked for 2 lieutenant governors, a governor, and then I've also worked in the Office of Legislative Counsel. And as a public defender, I've conducted over 55 jury trials. And so imagine how many people I've cross-examined. I've cross-examined law enforcement officers and also other folks. Sorry, I got distracted.
He's okay.
Here's the thing. Over this experience that I've had, I've realized that our courts, and I'm going to be just honest with you, racism is blatant in our courts. And that's one of the reasons why I don't seek out the endorsements of other judges. I do have support from other judges, but I feel like we need more judges that are willing to speak out on these issues and really be frank with people and do stuff to reform the system. For example, when I saw that there was an injustice in the way youth were treated, I worked on a law, AB 1423, which helped youth stay in juvenile court, youth that had been transferred up to adult court. And we know from every study, from every piece of research, that's people that look like us that are being transferred up to adult court. So, thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to get started with our questions, which we have for you guys. And we'll kick it off to you first. For the first question, it is, how do you define justice?
So justice for me is equality. So in the court system, it would be equality in the way people are treated, and also equality in the way we have access to courts. I'll give you an example. I've had 2 clients, Mr. Terrence and Mr. Yaffe. Mr. Terrence was a black man who set fire to a dumpster. Mr. Yaffe was a white man who set fire to a fence. Now, both of these men were found guilty. When the judge decided to do the sentencing, in regards to my Mr. Terrence Robinson, he got 5 years state prison. And then when it was sentencing time for Mr. Yaffe, the court said, I don't think he'll do good in prison. So I'm going to put him on probation. So that is not equality. That is not justice. That's why I'm running.
Thank you.
And we have the same question from Mrs. Coleman.
Question was, how do you define justice? Okay, thank you. Justice, that means everybody has notice, opportunity to be heard, access, and fairness. It requires not just access to the courts, but quality access to the court. Ideally, everybody would have representation, but we realize that about 70% of the people who are using our court system don't have representation. It's important that the people who are on the bench and all of our court users can identify their implicit biases. Everybody has them. If you don't, you maybe are unaware or you're probably being a little disingenuous. I have implicit biases. We need to check our biases as we make our decisions and we make our recommendations that affect those people who are using the court system. Diversity is also important. California is a rich, diverse state. The judiciary should be looking more like the beauty and the richness of the diversity of our state. And I hope that that's something that we can achieve. And that's generally my idea of justice.
Thank you. Ladies, next question, please.
Our next question is, how do you plan to address extreme/disproportionate sentencing of Black juveniles? And we'll start with Mrs. Coleman. Our next question is, how do you plan to address extreme/disproportionate?
So,
We'll start with Mrs. Coleman.
okay, go ahead and go. So first of all, the judiciary is separate and apart from the legislative branch and the executive branch. We follow the laws as they're written. We can't make laws. We take the facts of each case. We bring to our cases all of our life experiences as we interpret the information that is presented to us. We determine credibility, and we look at the guidelines that we have to work within in terms of sentencing guidelines. We have some discretion in some of these matters, but in many matters, we don't have discretion. I do believe that I've had this experience in making a determination about what's going to happen to a youth of color who's in the courtroom before me. There have been times when I have had the recommendation to put the juvenile in juvenile hall, but based on the facts, the information, and my experiences that I brought to the courtroom, I decided that was the inappropriate solution. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not getting the cues, and now I have them.
I apologize for that. We're going to get that straightened out right now because I'm not getting the cues either. So we're going to work together, make sure you get them. Sam, do you have your form that for you to ask a question, or yes, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go over to Sam. Sam has a question. Or I'm sorry, Mr. Calvillo, did you answer that question yet? You can just give me a head nod.
Okay, and now it's your turn.
Okay, so the question was?
The question was, how do you plan to address extreme/disproportionate discipline sentencing of Black juveniles?
I think the way we start to address that is to admit that that actually happens. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's face it, Black people are treated differently in our current system than white people and brown people as well, right? I think we first admit that it happens, and I'll be honest with you, it's just not going to happen in my courtroom. To talk about the example that I gave you earlier about Mr. Yaffe and Mr. Robinson, if probation was good enough for Mr. Yaffe, it's good enough for Mr. Robinson. I do believe that judges have a lot of discretion, and if that discretion was used fairly, we wouldn't be having this conversation about equality or fairness. If we have to think about the judge's role, and I got 10 seconds here, and I'll get back to it on another question, I think. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to move it over to Samuel. Samuel has a question, and we'll start with Ms. Coleman.
Okay. So, how do you plan to ensure fairness and impartiality if you are elected to the bench?
Okay, the question is, how do I plan to ensure fairness and impartiality if I'm elected to the bench? Samuel, you may not already know, I'm already on the bench, and I employ those tools and those goals in my courtroom every single day. It's important to me that every litigant has an opportunity to be heard. I may have some idea of how a case may go based on the pleadings, but only when I get those litigants in the courtroom and I hear their story and I ask those important questions, do I get the true picture. And what I may have thought was going to be my ruling at that time may be completely swayed by credibility, additional facts, and my belief in what I believe is the most important factor. And I'll make my decisions based on the facts, the law, and the experience that I have in the courtroom in making the best possible decision based on all these factors. I hope that answers your question, Sam.
Mr. Calvillo, it is on you, sir.
I hope that answers your question.
And now it's your turn.
Great. And so the question is how to ensure fairness in the courtroom. I believe that the best way to do that is to treat everybody fairly. So, for example, if a police officer testifies, he gets treated the same way as if a defendant testifies, and the rulings would be consistent. So consistency is key. And the other thing is to go back to this idea about discretion. Judges in a trial, judges have a lot of discretion as to what evidence is allowed in. And my experience has been that when we are dealing with people of color, that the evidence that is allowed in that would help them is less than it would be on a person that is not of color. And so I am committed to making sure that those type of decisions are consistent and fair to all, everybody that's heard inside that courtroom.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I think it's time that we wrap it up for the ending statements for each of our candidates. So, would we want to start with you?
Sure. Well, I'm running for judge because I believe that we need judges that are, in fact, more willing to actually be fair and to administer justice equally. My experience has been that just doesn't happen, and I've come up with programs that I think will help address that. In fact, I have a program on gun violence that I'm going to be unveiling next week. I do believe that judges can play more of a role. If we think of it this way, the judge is like the bus driver, right? He or she makes sure that the bus operates on time and gets to where it needs to get to. Well, when the bus is broken, the bus driver doesn't know how to fix it. I've been in trial work for 10 years now. I can get my hands dirty, look under the hood, and actually fix the issues in our justice system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's time for Mrs. Coleman.
Thank you for giving me the chance to speak with you and your audience today. I invite everybody to follow our campaign, learn more about me and my candidacy and my experience by following us on Facebook, IG, Twitter, or YouTube, or on our website. My journey and my story kind of informs my perspectives. It's the wealth of my life experience that I bring to the judgeship. There's a maturity in my outlook, my assessment, my values, and it's a richness of my experiences that kind of shape my decisions. I'm using the power of judicial office for good. You know, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson talks about perseverance, and that definition is to maintain a purpose in spite of difficulty, obstacles, or discouragement. My life journey and my career pursuits are a testament of my perseverance. I bring all of that to my courtroom and to my work in the community, and I would be honored to have your vote for Sacramento Superior Court Judge. Thank you so much for this time.
Yes.
Thank you so very much to both of our candidates, both Mr. Calvillo and Miss Stockdale Coleman, who are running for Sacramento Superior Court judges. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us and allowing our young people to kind of facilitate the conversation.